Greetings, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today is the start of my next book diary for our next Space Sirens book. So this is Jade City by Fonda Lee. I just started it last night. I've only read 2 chapters so far. I tend to go into reading books without knowing very much about them, which means I'm often pleasantly surprised, like I was with The House in the Cerulean Sea. This one I'm less sure. I say I've only read 2 chapters so far, and it kind of seems to be it's going to be about a lot of gangs, and it's like, but they're fighting over jade, which has magical properties. So the opening couple of chapters have had like quite a bit of violence in them, and I'm going to persevere because it's our book club book. And I've heard a lot of people talking about raving about this series, and also it's one of my Cluedo picks, so I have to get through it because I haven't decided what to do if I want to DNF a book that was one of my Cluedo picks. So I am going to carry on reading. It's Saturday. You may be able to tell I'm in a different filming location. This is the first time I am doing any filming in my new place. I would give you a tour, but it's a little bit messy still at the moment. I moved in just over a week ago, but I've started a course and I'm living on site at my college, on the college campus. So I've got a bedroom and then like shared kitchen and dining room and bathroom space and that sort of thing. I've also got a study, but I don't actually get access to my study until Monday, so I've got stuff in my room at the moment that needs to go in the study, and then when that's done my room will be a bit calmer. And so in a couple of weeks time, it's my birthday soon as well, so I'll be doing a birthday book haul and I'll do a little room tour then as well. Anywho, so it's Saturday. We just had induction week for my course and it was really full on. Feeling a little bit tired today. Really, my only goal for today was to try and get my washing done, and I've done that. For the rest of the day I'm just going to be reading. It's also the Conqueror Chonker readathon this weekend, which I can't remember the name of the person that is hosting it. It's a book blogger. That is one of the reasons why I'm trying to get through Jade City. I'm going to try and read the whole thing this weekend. We'll see how I get on with that. So I'm going to just sit and read for a bit and I'll update you again later. Hello. So it is now Monday, the 21st of September. I have just got to 100 pages into Jade City. I was hoping to read quite a lot of it this weekend and I didn't actually have as much time for reading as I wanted, but also I'm not enjoying it as much as I hoped, so I kind of have not been prioritising it. I've been reading other things because they have been more interesting to me. Yeah, so just got to chapter 11, 100 pages in. I didn't realise that the story was like going to be about gangs within the city. So it's set in a place called Kaikon and a city called Janloon, and it's about 2 families that are controlling the trade in jade, and jade gives certain people not necessarily special powers, but it gives them, I suppose, superhuman strength and speed and perception and that sort of thing. So it's quite strictly controlled within these 2 families, but it kind of is a little bit of like family gangs. So they have the leader of the clan is called the Pillar, and then he has 2 second-in-commands called the Weatherman and the Horn, and then the like foot soldiers are called the Fingers, and the commanders of those are called Fists. So it's all like very structured. I didn't know either that Fonda Lee is a black belt martial artist, so there's quite a lot of emphasis on martial arts and fighting. There's more emphasis on that than I was expecting, I should say, and the setting is more modern than I was expecting, so it's like a version of our world but that has magic. So there's like planes still and cars and stuff. If it wasn't a book club book, I don't know that I would be persevering with it, but because it's our book club pick, I am going to carry on with it. Also because it's one of my Cluedo picks and I haven't figured out what to do if I need to DNF a book for that yet, so that's fun. I think it would help if I felt like I liked some of the characters, but at the moment I don't. The only character that I kind of liked is Shay, who's the daughter of one of the families who has been off studying abroad and has come back and is trying to sort of figure out her place in the family, but there's only been 1 chapter about her so far. The other characters, the main family that the story is following is the Cool family. The pillar of that family is called Lan, and I want to like him but I don't particularly at the moment. And then his younger brother, who is the Horn, is called Hilo, and I don't particularly like him either. And then there's a younger cousin of the family called Andon, and he's alright. I kind of like him, interested to see how his character develops. And then we've just been introduced at the point that I'm at to the pillar of the other family, who is called a lady called Marda, and I don't particularly like her either. So hopefully I'll start to like some of these characters, because that is what engages me in a novel. But at the moment I'm not overly enjoying it, which is a shame. But I'm going to persevere, although at the moment I have some studying to do for my course, so I'm switching to a very exciting book called From Topic to Thesis, which is going to help me write my dissertation. So that's fun. We'll try and read some more tonight. I need to do about an hour of studying, and then I'm going to head towards bed and relaxation time, and we'll try and read a bit more tonight. Anywho, that's all for now. Okay, so we're now on the 3rd of October. So it's been a little while since I last updated, and I can't remember when I last updated even. It might not be that long ago, who knows. Anyway, but I am persevering with Jade City because most people in the Space Sirens book group really enjoyed this book. One person really didn't, but they all really seemed to love it, so I thought I'd keep giving it a go. You may remember last time I updated I wasn't really enjoying it. It got to about 100 pages. I'm now nearly halfway through, so I'm just past halfway through actually, I think, because it's just under 500 pages and I'm just up to page 249. It is growing on me a little bit. My main problem is that I don't really like particularly any of the characters. There are a couple that I kind of want to root for, but I'm not really sure that I like any of them. It's too much about gangs for me, really, for my taste. That's just not the sort of book that I enjoy. The magic system doesn't really work for me either. It's kind of been explained, but not in any consistent way, really, and it seems like it's a very structured magic system, but there's just not been enough explanation of it, and usually that means that you pick it up as you go along, but I just still don't feel halfway through the book that there's been enough exploration of that. The other thing that I realised was my issue with it is I remember back when I was in secondary school and in drama class, when we started to have to put together our own, develop our own performances rather than from scripts. I remember one of the drama teachers saying that whichever character we introduced to the audience first would be the ones that they'd be rooting for, so we had to think carefully about which we would introduce to the audience first. That really stuck with me, and it came to mind when I started reading this book, because the way the first chapter is set up, the first characters that are introduced to us are two young teenage boys down on their luck who are going to try and pull off a bit of a heist from a down and out gang member, but they don't realise that this is going to get them into trouble with the gang. My problem is that I was then rooting for these two characters. I thought it was going to be a bit of an underdog story, that these were going to be the two central characters because they're the ones introduced to us first. The first chapter is predominantly about them and their attempts to steal this jade from this gang member, and then a couple of members of the gang are introduced in that chapter, but it doesn't seem like they're the characters that we should be caring about until partway through the next chapter, and then suddenly it's revealed, or it becomes evident, that this story is about the gang and the gang members, and these two boys are just circumstantial, and that really bothered me. One of them has reappeared a couple of times in the story and I think is going to play a bit more of a role, but that was just really off-putting to me. And if it had just been set up slightly differently, so that the gang members were the ones that we met first rather than the two teenage boys, then maybe that would have not set up my expectations in the wrong way. But I just really struggled with the book after that I felt like I had been given a false premise from the first chapter that then turned out to be completely inaccurate. So between that and having characters I don't particularly root for and a plot line that doesn't particularly interest me, I am struggling to get through this book. It was meant to be the live show today, but between a mix of a couple of us haven't finished the book yet and the people that have, a couple of them aren't available, we've actually postponed it to next week, so hopefully I will have finished it before the live show. So I am going to try and read some more this evening. I'm hopefully going to finish it before the live show next week, and I will keep updating you as I go on. I'm not going to read any more right this minute because I've just filmed a load of videos and there are books everywhere and I need to reorganise my new bookshelves. Woo! Which I had got organised, and then I had to move a load of books into my study, and then I bought a load of books, so I just need to spend a bit of time shuffling books around. But I probably will read some more today after I've done that, and I'm definitely aiming to finish it before the live show next week. Now I will update you again next time I read some more. Hi. So I wasn't actually sure whether to finish filming and actually bother with completing this book diary or not, because it is now the 10th. It's been a week since I updated you on the book, and that's mainly because I've had a cold this week, so I haven't felt up to keeping up to date. I did finish the book, I have persevered and got to the end of it. I didn't enjoy it, so I wasn't sure whether I was going to finish off this book diary or not, but we've just had the book club discussion, which I will link to in the description for you so you can check it out. And it was a really great discussion actually, because I was approaching it from a different place to everyone else in that I hadn't liked it, so I had been quite analytical in thinking about what it was that I didn't like about it. We actually had some really good discussions about some of the stuff that I didn't like. Angela from Literature Science Alliance pointed out that actually it's really good sometimes to have that different opinion, because like this book has been really hyped, and I was looking through some of the reviews on Goodreads and they're all so positive and I was feeling like I was like very much the minority. Even in the book club, I think one other person hadn't really enjoyed it, but she wasn't able to make the discussion today, but everyone else has been raving about it. And so actually sometimes it's really important to hear the other side of the story of really popular books, so that you can feel less isolated when you don't like a popular book. So I mean, I want these videos to be spoiler free, these book diaries, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about some of the specifics of what I didn't like. I've already talked a little bit in one of my updates about the setup, where the opening chapter started with two characters, one of whom didn't appear again after like the second chapter, and the other one who appeared a few times in the rest of the book, in some ways had some pivotal moments but wasn't one of the perspective characters, and so that setup kind of jarred with me a little bit, because it set me up to expect a certain thing from the story, which the book didn't go that direction. I've mentioned as well that I didn't particularly like any of the characters. There was one character that I did like, which was Andon, who is the cousin of the main family in the story. He was a really sweet character. One of the things that came out in the discussion was that I could appreciate a lot of stuff about this book. So like the characterization was really good. The characters mostly were really complex and layered and had lots of like there were legitimate reasons for doing what they did, and you could understand their motivations, and so the characters were really well written. I just didn't personally like any of them apart from Andon. And then the other character that I liked for the most part was Shay, who was one of the sisters in the main family, the Cool family. But then she did something that I didn't agree with. I understood why she did it, but I didn't like that she had made that decision, and I kind of didn't like her as much after that, and I can't say what that is without giving away a heck of a lot of the story. Yeah, so we talked in the discussion a little bit about some of that. For me, liking characters is really important to my enjoyment of a book, and I can put up with a lot if I'm rooting for the characters. So like the setting, the book was really reminiscent of kung fu films, martial art films, and gangster stories, that sort of thing. That's the inspirations that Fonda Lee took, and that's fine, that's what she likes. That's not my cup of tea. I don't really enjoy those genres specifically. I like fantasy, I like urban fantasy, but I don't particularly like gang or martial art epics. And there was a lot of violence as well, which is another thing that I don't really like. But I've been thinking about some of the other books that maybe have similar themes that I did like, and so the example that came to mind was An Ember in the Ashes series by Sabaa Tahir, which has some similar themes. It's very much about the dynamic of honour and loyalty. There's a lot of violence in those books as well, but the difference being that the two central characters I really liked, and that was partly because they were going against the systems that were telling them they had to act in a certain way. And I think what I didn't like in Jade City was that everyone was buying into this system, which was really oppressive to everyone. So I think that was part of the thing that I didn't like. I'm trying to remember some of my other train of thoughts, but I think there's not a lot more that I can say that wouldn't be spoilery. But if you don't mind spoilers, go and check out that book club discussion that we had, because I do go into my thoughts a lot more in there. So what I will say in support of this book is the world building is excellent. The descriptions are really vivid. The setting is really well rounded. I could see the settings. I could see the streets of Caicon. I could understand how all that worked. Like, it was so well put together in that sense. The characters, I've already said, were really well crafted. They were multi-layered, they had complex motivations and complex relationships, and so the characterization was brilliant. There was really good character development as well. I didn't necessarily agree with the way the characters were developed, but it was there and it was effectively done. The magic system we talked a little bit about in the discussion as well. I didn't actually say this in the live show, like some of the magic system didn't feel well developed enough to me, but what we did talk about in the live show, which I thought was actually a really good way of explaining the magic system in this book, is that it's kind of like a drug addiction, that the jade they use to superpower themselves is kind of like steroids that they're addicted to that make them superpowered. And I thought that was a really interesting way of looking at it. That was one thing that didn't entirely work for me. And yeah, there are other little things, like there was hints of ableism and hints of homophobia, and like the world that she created is very patriarchal, so I wasn't entirely comfortable with some of the characterization of women, but I do also recognise that it was a big break from the way women are traditionally represented in this type of novel, like in gang novels or martial arts novels, where they're either, like, if they're there, they're victimised. So that was good, but yeah, I didn't entirely like some of the portrayal of the female characters in the book. I don't think I have very much more to say. Do go and watch that live show and see what we all thought, if you're happy to see spoilers. Let me know what you thought of Jade City as well. Really would love to hear from more people that enjoyed the book. Like, I don't want to put people off by saying that I didn't like it, because that is very much down to my taste. I don't like martial art gang novels, and apparently I don't like reading about patriarchal societies for fun, because I have to read about it too much for my studies. So that's what we decided anyway. But this book was really well written, so if you don't mind that, if you don't mind gang violence, if you don't mind a lot of fighting and brutal torture and death, and if you like morally grey complex characters, then you will probably like this book. It's just those things don't necessarily appeal to me. Some of them, maybe, but not all at the same time. Anywho, I'm going to leave it there. So thank you so much for watching this book diary. This has been an interesting one for me, because it's the first time I've done it for a book that I've not been enjoying. So let me know what you think of the book, of what I've said about the book. But please be respectful. If you're going to bash me for not liking the book, then I'm going to delete your comments, because we're all entitled to our own opinions. Follow me and follow our Space Sirens account on Twitter, and I'll leave all the links to social media and stuff in the description for you to go and check out. And please also subscribe if you'd like to hear more from me. But that's it for today, so thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye!